I'm in Washington, D.C. in Lincoln Park near the Emancipation statue. This is a controversial statue. It has a black man, a former enslaved human being, kneeling beneath kind-hearted Lincoln. I don't know if you can see it through the fence. And he has broken shackles and he's wearing a loincloth. And he's touching Lincoln's shoe. Can't really see it from here through this fence. There's a large police presence here at 4 in the afternoon on a Monday. As you can see, there's like 11 to 15 police officers, and there's really no people around doing too much, just a couple people hanging out in the park. But there's 11 officers that are surrounding this because it's been the subject of some serious controversy. Crews installed a fence around the statue here because protesters said they were planning on toppling this statue down, and the statue was built to commemorate in 1863 the proclamation of freeing the slaves during the height of the Civil War. And in the past months, there's been a lot of demands to move a number of statues. In some cases, they just want to tear them down, and usually their target is Confederate generals and, you know, things that are, you know, symbols of hatred and white supremacy. Now, this statue is a little bit interesting. It's not a statue that was meant to be one of hatred. It has Lincoln in it, but what's been going on is a lot of places around the country have chosen to kind of go a little bit further. For example, a statue of George Washington was torn down in Portland, Oregon, and a statue of Ulysses S. Grant, like a monument, was toppled in San Francisco. So, you know, it's become kind of controversial because some of these people fought like crazy to try to end slavery. And a lot of folks read this whitewashed history in their books, and they just don't really know as much as they should about. The details matter. They really do matter. So I don't know where it ends and, you know, where's the gray area where it stops. But the this particular Emancipation Memorial in Washington, D.C. was erected in 1876 in Lincoln Park here on Capitol Hill. It's drawn a lot of criticism for its paternal imagery of a standing President Lincoln looming over a kneeling black man and his broken shackles. Protesters across the nation obviously have taken it upon themselves to kind of yank these down, and so a lot of police presence is surrounding statues like this one. These police have been out here. They were out here yesterday, the day before, and they're out here every day. It's important to note historically that many of the statues that were put up across the southern states that commemorate these horrific people who wanted to, not only were they, you know, traitors to America, but they wanted slavery. They wanted the enslavement of another human being for their own benefits. So it's not exactly something to celebrate. Yeah, you could say that again. Historians trace this back to the Jim Crow era. These weren't put up because, you know, after the Civil War, they were looking up to these great heroes who, you know, would die just to keep slavery. They put them up as, you know, for intimidation, basically. Way after, during the Jim Crow era, to say, yeah, you may have won the war, but you're not winning this battle. It's a horrible thing, and they should have been taken down just years and years. I mean, it's just awful that these things have stayed. So they're planning. There's actually a group that's actually planning to topple this thing over, and they met last week. They feel like this statue is extremely inappropriate because it implies that it was only Lincoln's benevolence and not the efforts of actual black people that ended American slavery, and I would absolutely tend to agree. You know, it might have been originally created for a good thing, but I mean, there's stereotypes that linger today and are perpetuated by white supremacists, that, oh, slaves didn't even try to get free. They liked, I mean, I've heard it all. They liked being slaves. They, it was better for them anyway. I mean, just tons of bullshit. I mean, yeah, right. It's absolute BS. But people believe anything nowadays, if it suits their argument. And so since its dedication on the eve of the 11th anniversary of Lincoln's assassination, there's been controversy. So it's not like controversy is coming up right now. Everybody has said things about this for a long time. Interestingly, funds for this memorial were raised entirely from freed slaves, including black veterans of the Union Army. And that's according to this National Park Service here. But the organization in charge of commissioning and actually purchasing the statue was a charity organization called St. Louis Western Sanitary Commission, which was made up of white folks only. Interestingly, in attendance at the monument's dedication was President Ulysses S. Grant, who, as Lincoln's top general, won the Civil War for us, and as the president sought to fend off the ultimately successful Southern effort to end Reconstruction and return power to white people in the South. This was going on. At its dedication, Frederick Douglass, who had escaped slavery to become a famous author, abolitionist, and a great leader, delivered a historic oration about the fallen president, President Lincoln, and said he grappled with what he and others believed was Lincoln's slow embracing of abolition. Although Lincoln ultimately lost his life due to his insistence that slavery must end. Those in attendance at this monument's dedication were Ulysses S. Grant and Frederick Douglass and a number of other very famous people. Frederick Douglass said, viewed from the genuine abolition ground, Mr. Lincoln seemed tardy, cold, dull, and indifferent. But according to the published version of his remarks, he said, but measuring him by the sentiment of his country, a sentiment he was bound as a statesman to consult, he was swift, zealous, radical, and determined. Though Mr. Lincoln shared the prejudices of his white fellow countrymen against the Negro, it is hardly even necessary to say that Lincoln's heart loathed and hated slavery. So a lot of people are just very angry because there's been centuries of history rewritten, lies, oppression, and systemic racism. That's Frederick Douglass's real words, saying he truly believed, he knew Lincoln, and knew that he was absolutely against slavery. But you see, he was a politician, and he was working, as we all know about today, with people in his constituency who did not want to allow freedom to these human beings who white people had deemed enslaved. So he was political about it. Maybe he didn't, speak out the way he should, but according to the research I've done, he absolutely was against slavery. And all his rhetoric about saving the Union, obviously I believe he believed that, but I have no doubt in my mind that he wanted to end slavery. President Abraham Lincoln lost his life. His life was taken to free enslaved people. And I just wanted to make that clear because there is some controversy in history. He died for this, and I've read a few books, Chasing Lincoln's Killer and books like that, and they confirm this. Lincoln knew he would probably be, there's a chance he'd be assassinated. People were furious, absolutely furious about losing the Civil War. So if you like your if you like your racial history served with a side order of truth, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.